It's like a downhill bike, but you could pedal it if you wanted to. But we're not pedaling today. Chairlifts.
I was told no pedaling. That is the only reason I'm here. This dropper stays down.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike Casimir. We're here in Pemberton, British Columbia for the Pinkbike Field Test. Today we're going to take a look at the new Specialized Enduro. It's got 170 millimeters of travel front and rear, 29-inch wheels, and it's only available in carbon for now. If you're familiar with the look of the previous Enduros, you've probably noticed that this one looks a lot different. And you also might have noticed that it looks a lot like the demo downhill bike that's had some pretty impressive results this year on the World Cup circuit. Basically what Specialized wanted to do, they wanted the bike to pedal better and descend better. In order to accomplish that, they moved the main pivot forward and gives the bike more anti-squat. So when you're standing up, cranking down the pedals, it should feel more efficient. We'll get to that when we get to the riding impressions. And they also wanted the bike to have a better rear axle path. So when it hits a bump, they want it to carry momentum. The old bike, the rear wheel tended to go forward pretty quickly. This one, it does go forward, but initially it has a little bit more backwards path, just allows it to kind of skip over and really suck up those bumps. Along with increasing the amount of anti-squat, Specialized also increased the amount of progression, or the amount that the shock ramps up as it goes through its travel. Basically, that should help the bike not bottom out too easily. So if you got some big hucks to flats planned, or you want to jump over some canyons, this bike should be less likely to blow through that travel as quickly. The S-Works frame actually has a different link that's carbon, and that saves around half a pound. Component highlights of this S-Works build include Shimano's 12-speed XTR drivetrain that's matched with a pair of race face carbon cranks. Got carbon Revol wheels, Shimano XTR 4-piston brakes, and you also have a Axis wireless dropper post. Suspension duties are handled by Fox. It's a 36 up front with, like I said, 170 millimeters of travel and that Grip 2 damper, and there's a Float X2 air shock in the rear. It has all the cool little features that Specialized has become known for over the last few years. Their SWAT storage system. So basically there's room for snacks and a tube and some tools in the down tube. There's also a multi-tool that's stored in the head tube, along with a chain tool. There's also chain slap protection, has that rib design. Again, Specialized is one of the first companies that we saw bring that to the mass market, just designed to keep the chain quiet. It also has internal cable routing, and not all internal cable routing designs are equal. Some can be rattly and loud. This one, they've done a pretty good job. You can feed the housing in from the back end, pops right out the front. No need for magnets, tools, magnifying glasses, anything like that. I set the bike up with 20 pounds in the front tire, 22 in the rear, and those are those Maxxis control tires we've been using. That's the Assegai for this bike, 2.5 inch wide with a double down casing. I ran 30% sag in the Float X2 shock and 69 PSI in the Fox 36 fork. I also ended up swapping out the 50 mil stem for a 40 mil option, just because of the bike's overall length. I felt more comfortable with that setup, and that's the one we used for the remainder of the testing. The bike we're on is the S4 size, and Specialized uses that S denomination, just kind of a way to suggest that you choose a bike based on reach rather than a number like C2 length.
For tires, I put 22 PSI in the front, 23 in the rear, and then for suspension, I actually decided to use Specialized suspension calculator app, and it was actually pretty bang on for me. Sag was spot on, 90 PSI in the fork, 246 in the shock, and that equated to about 30% sag. I did end up speeding up the rebound once we got to the bike park. It just felt, with those quicker repeated hits that the shock could spring back to life a bit quicker. Other than that though, settings were pretty spot on. Overall, I felt the climbing position to be pretty good on the Specialized. Only time I noticed the length was in those super tight switchbacks. You kind of gotta enter wide and carve in, but you know what, it's totally manageable. I did try climbing in that lower geometry position, experienced a fair number of pedal strikes and bash guard strikes, so if your climbing trails are a bit rockier, I might suggest keeping in that steeper position, but other than that, great climber for that travel.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning though, we both did think that we could possibly use an even steeper C-tube angle. Remember, this has a pretty generous reach, so a steeper C-tube angle would kind of give you that more upright position. I ended up slamming the seat pretty far forward. Again, I'm a little shorter than Jason, but something to keep in mind. Regarding the suspension feel when climbing, it feels quite efficient, especially again for a bike with this much travel. There's not a ton of bob. It has traction, but you're not just mushing up and down. It doesn't feel like you're jumping down a waterbed, anything like that. And compared to the previous Enduro, you can notice the increased anti-squat. When you step on the pedals, it feels like it's accelerating forward. It's just not wasting its travel.
We took it to the Whistler Bike Park, and I didn't encounter a trail that this bike couldn't handle. The length didn't really come into play in the corners. It was actually kind of fun to just set up high, pump through the corner, generate a ton of speed. The bike tracked through rough stuff like no problem. I did find the bike was a touch hard to just pull up and pop over things. But once again, it's a race bike. You just kind of want to smash through it anyway, and that was a ton of fun.
The overall feel of the suspension, it's nice and plush, soaks up all the hits, and it just feels like the rear wheel gets out of the way nicely. A lot of chattery brake bumps in the bike park this time of year, just plows right through them. There's some bikes out there that want to go fast all the time, and the Specialized Enduro definitely qualifies.
So on our Schleyer time lap, this was the fastest bike for me, and I could kind of feel that right away. Every time I finished a lap, it just felt quick, stayed to the ground, didn't have any sketchy moments. It was a blast.
My time lapse on this bike occurred on a rainy day, and I did put down my fastest time of that day. Overall, it was my third fastest time, so 3 out of 4, it wasn't the fastest, but I put money on it that if I had this bike on a dry day against all the other bikes, it would be the fastest.
The component spec on the S-Works Enduro was an absolute treat. With special touches like the SWAT box and SWAT tool under the stem, it was kind of hard to go back to bikes without those features. The DD cockpit was also a nice touch. I really got along with those grips. That 50mm stem might be a touch long for some people. I actually opted for the 40mm as well at 6'1". Last but not least, that E-Verb is so sweet, it just works flawlessly, no problem.
That XTR 12-speed drivetrain, no issues there. We've kind of praised it before, and that praise holds up. Just shift whenever you want, under load, no issues. This bike also has Specialized Revol carbon wheels. Did some pretty good rock smashing. I made them make some bad noises in the Schleyer Rock Garden. Was sure something would be wrong with them. Checked them out, totally fine. There's a lot to like about the new Enduro. I think the fact that it feels a lot like a downhill bike is going to be a strong selling point. I mean, for me, you can hop on it, feel instantly comfortable, and it's just solid and fast. The weight on this bike is really reasonable considering the amount of travel. I mean, of course, the price is also high, so those things tend to be tied together, but at 32.5 pounds for what this bike can do, that's impressive. The bike's improved pedaling performance and bottom-out resistance are both noticeable features. It's not just marketing speak when Specialized mentioned that it has that. They were telling the truth.
It's probably going to be a little bit too much bike for people with mellow terrain. It's definitely bigger than the old Enduro, and you know, if your trails are flatter, this bike is not going to be for you. That S-Works model behind me, super expensive. It's like down payment on a house expensive. That being said, Specialized does offer cheaper models.
Who's this bike for? It's for anyone that wants to go fast. It's a seriously speedy bike. It really makes it easy to justify not owning a downhill bike. You could use it for a race bike, or just anytime you want to go smash out some laps and be quicker than your buddies.
There you have it. That's the Specialized Enduro 29. Stay tuned for more content from the Pinkbike Field Test and for a roundtable discussion comparing and contrasting all these Enduro bikes.